Buffalo Bills fans, welcome into the 720, the July 2024 edition of the Founders Podcast. I am one of your founders. I am DM3 Dave Myers. And that handsome gentleman to my right is one of the other founders. That's ARich Richens. He was battling some thunderstorms out there in the Jacksonville area, and his son had a boxing match. So, he had a lot going on today. It's summer. I mean, it's July, man. We get all this stuff worked out right now. But Rich, man, how you feeling, man? How you feeling?
Hey, Rich, Richens. If you don't know us by now, please get to know us. We are the Built in Buffalo Network. DM3, I'm doing better. Now that I'm finally on the show, I was a little stressed about 2 minutes ago. You seen me, and you said I had the woosah. I was a little agitated, so to speak. But now that we're live, I'm back in my comfort zone. This is where I want to be. I'm great. How you doing, DM3?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a slow week of football news, Bills news. There's been some stuff going around. Obviously, as you see the title of our show, it is Josh Allen Underrated. And I think everybody, unless you live under a rock, you've seen or heard about the top 10 NFL quarterbacks list that came out from the NFL executive scouts and coaches. That's going to be the main bread and butter of our show. We are going to talk, however, about James Cook and a possible contract coming up for him in the next couple of years. We started talking about it last week, and Akeem and myself, I think we agreed throughout the week that it would be a really good topic to have somewhat of a mini debate on, because I don't see a lot of folks out there in the Bills world talking about it. And then we do want to talk about the Bills wide receiver room of 2023 compared to the Bills wide receiver room of 2024. Everybody knows that there's a huge amount of turnover there as far as people in, people out. So we want to get into that. And then, of course, we're going to talk about Josh Allen, how he stacks up against the other 10 or the other 9 quarterbacks in the top 10. There's going to be a lot of talk about the top 5, the top 3, and obviously Josh Allen compared to everybody. So before we get into that, as everybody knows, the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo is Monster Energy. Thank you to them for supporting us throughout this entire season. If you guys are watching on YouTube, please smash the subscribe button. Let's get a bigger following in here. Let's get this channel growing heading into the season here in about a month and a half. If you're watching on Facebook, share, like. If you're watching on X, repost, share, do all that stuff. So, hey, Rich, we talked last week, and I don't even think the conversation meant to go in the direction that it went into when we were, talking about our top 10 most important Bills this coming season that are going to be keys to success. And we talked about James Cook. We both had him as number 3 on our lists. And then I kind of started thinking about, is this a guy that the Bills could possibly break the mold of, draft, develop, rinse, repeat? Because they've done that. And we listed everybody that was here before, James Cook. So I guess I'll let you lead off this topic and see where you want to start with this debate, because you asked a very important question. You asked if James Cook was a special player. So if you want to start off that way, and then we can kind of lean into contracts and stuff like that. Just your overall first 2 years, James Cook. Obviously, he had the rookie season, and last year he kind of broke out. And had a really big season last year for the Bills. So if you want to start it off, give me your thoughts and feelings, and then we'll kind of lead into contract talks and stuff like that.
So James Cook, when he was coming out of college, when he was coming out of Georgia, he didn't have a lot of tread on his tires, right? And he wasn't a guy that was looked at as a focal point in terms of running between the tackles. Where he made his hay, or where the scouts raved about James Cook, is his ability to run routes and catch the ball out the backfield. And that was his specialty, his component that can make him an impact player immediately, because he possessed that trait. And his first 2 years, I believe James Cook has round into form coming into his second year. His first year was probably similar to Georgia, where he played, but he didn't get a bulk of the carries. He was more of the rotational back, and he was more of the second back as opposed to the main, or as opposed to the feature back. And now we look to this past year where he had over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, and I think he had an excellent season. I think he showed that he can be a guy that can run between the tackles. I think he showed that ability, that trait that the scouts wasn't sure about. I think he kind of put that to rest. Uh, I love his explosive ability. I love his athletic ability, and I love the fact he can run routes and catch the ball out the backfield and can be a mismatch nightmare doing so. I have issues with his consistency. I'm not sure uh, how consistent James Cook is as of yet. Can he be the guy that we can look to play in and play out? If we go to him 10 times or 12 times, can he catch the ball every time it's thrown to him? Right? We saw Khalil Shakir last year had outrageous success rate every time Josh Allen threw the ball to him. Can James Cook not necessarily have that success rate in percentage, but can he catch the ball every time it hits his hands? And that is the question I have for James Cook, and that is that all want to know. Excuse me. I think that's the question we will all want answered this year. Can James Cook be consistent catching the football out the backfield and holding on to the football? And if he can do so, I think he's going to be an above average back in this league.
So let me ask you this: is the expectations for year 3, knowing what he did, and I have a graphic, I'll put it up. This is what he did last year. 1,122 rushing yards, which was 4th in the NFL. 445 receiving yards, which was 8th of all running backs. 1,557 total yards, which was 6th overall. And there's only 2 other running backs in there, which is CMC and Breece Hall. And the rest are wide receivers. And then he had 6 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground and 2 in the air. So, again, I ask, did he exceed your expectations for year 2, knowing all the hype that was built around him during the draft process? The rookie season, I think we just kind of, it was what it was. They were transitioning from Devin Singletary. We all thought James Cook was going to be that heir apparent. And I alluded to last week, I didn't think that there was ever going to be a contract for Devin Singletary. I think that it was something where they found James Cook, and that was the one that they actually liked. So with the production he had, I mean, we haven't seen production like that since LaShawn McCoy in 2016-17 when he was, getting the catches out of the backfield, and he was over 1,000 yards rushing. Did he exceed expectations for you last year, or was it right about where we thought it should be?
Specifically for last year, he definitely exceeded expectations. When you have over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, you was looked at by the league, right? You was announced to your first Pro Bowl. So being a 2nd round pick, I think he definitely exceeded expectations as a 2nd year running back. Yes.
So what are attainable expectations? I should say, what are reasonable expectations for him for year 3? Same as last year, or do you expect an uptick in production? And I'm not talking about, the drop wide open touchdown passes. I'm not talking about stuff like that. But I think on the ground, I think that he was pretty consistent throughout. Once Joe Brady took over, I feel like once they hit that home stretch down the road, when they were winning games after, that whatever happened in the middle of the season last year, I feel like he was very consistent. If he was in a game, he was going to get his touches. He was going to get his receptions. So what are tangible expectations for a year 3 running back? And we have to remember that this is the first full year of Joe Brady absolutely installing his offense. So what's your expectations?
1,200 yards, over 500 receiving yards, and at least 7 touchdowns. I don't either on the ground or through the air. James Cook, you said touchdowns aside that he dropped, right? But it's hard to ignore that. His stats would have been better, obviously, if he caught those touchdowns. So I expect him to be more consistent this year, and in being more consistent, it should be an uptick for James Cook statistically. he's looked at as an above average back throughout this above average back in this league. And I know that we signed Ray Davis, but if James Cook is an above average, or if he's a special player, or if he's a guy that you think deserves his next contract, then he should be the feature back and be in the game in the most pivotal moments and to be able to make those plays. So I'm expecting James Cook to have a huge year under Joe Brady's offense.
Yeah, I mean, if you are talking about 1,700 yards from scrimmage, that's going to be probably top 5 again. So that leads right into the conversation of James Cook comes out and has 1,700 yards from scrimmage this season, has 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, what have you. That's just basically a small uptick over what he had last year. If he does that again in 25, or even let's say he just does that next year, heading into year 4, is that something where the Bills might start thinking about, we know what we're getting from James Cook. It seems like, and if he works on the drop problems, obviously McDermott with his running backs is very well. He was early on when there was a fumbling issue, he would sit a guy down. So I think if he has a 1,700 yard from scrimmage season heading into year 4, I don't see why it's not a huge conversation at that point. Now, this all depends on what Ray Davis does and what they see from him. If Ray Davis is going to be the James Cook to Devin Singletary, or if Ray Davis is just going to be a consistent complementary back for 4 years, and that's why they drafted him in the 4th round. But isn't it worth a discussion, or are you in the mindset, and this is Akeem putting his general manager hat on, are you in the mindset that the Bills just need to consistently keep that running back room young, so that way there's fresh legs at all times, no matter what the scheme is, no matter who the offensive coordinator is? Because I'll tell you what, if Joe Brady has a really exceptional season and he takes this turned over offensive roster and especially skill position players, then they have a really good year, he's going to be getting head coaching interviews for 2025. Just because based off of what he did last year in the half of the season he coached the team, the offense, and then what he does this year. So that's always something to think about. What is the concept going to be? Is it going to be a 50-50 run pass split? So I guess to go back to the question, do you want the Bills, if James Cook has a meaningful season, 1,700 scrimmage yards, do you want the Bills to start thinking about giving him a contract extension after year 3, or do they need to wait till year 4 and after year 4?
Yeah, I'm thinking if he has that 1,700 scrimmage yards is the floor for me for James Cook. So
Really?
if he gets that 1,700 scrimmage yards, that would be great. I would be ecstatic, but that is not something that I would go and say, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and re-sign James Cook. Reason being is because I think Joe Brady's system is a running back friendly system. And if I'm calling a spade here, in Joe Brady's system, I truly feel if you're a special running back under a Joe Brady system, you should be in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. That's just how I feel about it. He's going to give his running backs the football. He's going to run the football. He's going to be consistent running the football, and his scheme is predicated to checking the ball down and delivering the ball short and having his running backs catch the ball and make stuff happen when they catch the ball. So, in my opinion, if he's not running for Offensive Player of the Year, like some above average type of statistics, then I'm going to hold off and let him ride out that contract.
So, with that being said, if he does have a successful season, 1,700 yards, what have you, around there, who would you comp him to, past or present, near present? Who would you comp him to? Would you say he's comparable to Alvin Kamara?
Yes, he's comparable to Alvin Kamara. Yes.
See, in my philosophy, I don't mind the let's stay young. We can churn out running backs in Joe Brady's system, because it's going to be heavily based off of blocking schemes, how good the offensive line gels again. Because the offensive line, we haven't even discussed that. The offensive line last year, those guys played all 17 games together, missed a few snaps here and there. But those guys played all 17 games. And if we don't get that from this offensive line, knock on wood that we do, but if we don't get that, that can affect a lot of other stuff that happens, the running game. And what we've heard and saw from Joe Brady last year is he's going to rely on the running game a lot to alleviate the pressure off of Josh Allen, so he doesn't have to do everything all the time. So I understand that the running back position is highly undervalued by general managers, NFL teams, just in general. But if you have a guy and he's churning out, 1,500, 1,700 yard seasons, and there's not much injury history and he's consistent, I don't see why you wouldn't go back to the well for, say 3 or 4 years. Because I don't think he's going to demand a high contract. I really don't. I don't think that we saw what Saquon Barkley got at anywhere up to, I think it was up to $40 million, right, for 3 years with incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And with the salary cap going up the way that it's going to be going up the next couple of years. There's going to be another TV deal that's going to be coming out, so the salary cap's going to increase even more. Talking about the NFL season, the rumors out there, it's going to go to 18 games. So I think that's a position. If it's important to your offensive coordinator, if he's going to be here for a while, I think that's somebody. If you have him already, fine. Again, I don't know. Ray Davis could be the next James Cook. I don't know. I think he's just a different type of back, and I think why wouldn't you just have a nice complement of running backs together? We've seen it for many years. I understand it's a passing league, but if we're going to have a 50-50 run pass offense, I think that having a guy that you know is consistent, doesn't have injury history, and is still pretty young at the age, and then you talk about it after that contract, So
what number? Give me a number. What number are we talking that would be a base for James Cook? What would be a starting point where we could say, okay, if the Buffalo Bills offered this to James Cook, would you re-sign him? What is that number?
It's not the $20 million that CMC got. And if you look at what CMC got, he had 50 more targets than James Cook in the passing game. That's why he had so many damn scrimmage yards, because he was so important to what they're doing. I have to see what they have lined up for James Cook this year. It could be something similar. I don't think it's going to be that extreme, but if he puts up 1,800 yards from scrimmage, he'll be top 3, probably top 5 in scrimmage yards. And if he puts up double-digit touchdowns, because I have a feeling like they're not going to be doing this tush push. I really don't. I think that once they get inside the 10-yard line, they're going to try to get their skill position players involved. And I'd say anywhere between 12 and 15 million, I'd be willing to pay James Cook. If he's
that's rich. That's rich. That's a little.
I also value the position a lot more than I think that general managers in the NFL do. I feel like if you're going to rely on a guy to get you from the 20s to the 20, you can't not reward them by giving them the touches inside the red zone. And that's one thing that I wasn't a huge fan of last year with Josh Allen getting the 15 rushing touchdown. It's cool because it gives him all these accolades and total touchdowns look huge on the year. But if James Cook, especially like the Dallas game, if he's getting you from the 20 to the 20, just keep handing the guy. And that's where the conversation, when these NFL people are comparing running backs, that's where they always drop James Cook off, because he only had the 2 touchdowns on the ground. So I don't know. I think if he shows more composure this year, the drops go away, he gets more consistent throughout the game, and he shows the ability to close games out, I don't know. I'd give him between $12 and $15 million. The salary cap's going to go up. I mean, they're not paying these wide receivers anything. Cam Coleman's on a rookie deal. Dalton Kincaid's still on a rookie deal for 3 seasons, this year and the next 2, or possibly the 5th year they'll have control of. Shakir's not making a ton of money. He's got another year on contract next year. So I don't know. I mean, Samuel's already been paid, right? So I don't know. I mean, where else is that money going to go? I mean, Josh is already under contract. I mean, that's going to be a debate for another couple of years. So what's your thoughts on it?
Wow. Again, I like James Cook a lot. I would have to see how he performs this year, in my opinion. Now, if he's touching, if he's touching close to 2,000 scrimmage yards, or having the similar stats than a CMC, then I can definitely see him being re-signed. But for 12 to 15 mil per, I'm not a fan of that for a running back. In my opinion, I wouldn't give right now, today, I wouldn't give James Cook more than 7 million per 3 years,
But that's
$21
right
million.
now. But that's
Mhm.
right now. What if he churns out an 1,800 scrimmage yard season and he gets 10 touchdowns? You're not going to pay the guy?
I'll give him 8 mil. I'll give him 8, 9 mil.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not. That's a lot of 15. So 3 years, 30, something similar to Saquon Barkley. I can't do that for James Cook.
Is he not more important to the team than Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir,
I think he's more
Dawson
important.
Knox? Is he not more important than Dawson Knox?
I think he is, based on the offensive coordinator. I believe any running back that would be the starting running back for the Buffalo Bills will be more important than those guys based
Yeah.
on the offensive coordinator.
It's interesting. It's an interesting
Mhm.
conversation.
All right. So let me just go. Let me just flat out ask you: Is James Cook special? Because
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
he's special. I think he's above average. I don't think he's special.
I think he sits on above average and he can be special. But he's played 2 years. He's played 2 years in the NFL. I mean, if you're talking about a generational talent like Saquon Barkley, who came in and set the league on fire, Alvin Kamara set the league on fire. Like, running backs in their third year, if you look historically, that is the year that they take their biggest leap. If you look at it historically. Now, James Cook, he's got a full offseason of Joe Brady's playbook. He had 9 games last year. So it's all on James Cook at this point. And if he comes out and he gets 1,800 yards from scrimmage, that is special. That's in a category of CMC and Breece Hall, and that's it. That's the only other 2 backs in the league that are doing that. And those guys are getting I think Christian McCaffrey almost had 100 targets last year, and Breece Hall had damn near almost 100 targets last year. And James Cook had 60, 55? If he's being seen in the offense like those guys, and again, I'm not comparing the players. I'm comparing the production. If you're getting production like that from James Cook, he is in that special elite category. People want to knock him because of the drops. Fine, it was a big deal. A couple of the drops that should never happen, especially in where it happened in the game or on the field, whatever. I get that. But James Cook is on the cusp of being special. I firmly believe so. And I feel like he was wasted his rookie year, and I feel like he was wasted the first half of last year. And Ken Dorsey had no idea how to use him. No idea how to use him.
Well, I'll give you this, right? I'll give you this. James Cook had 1,557 scrimmage yards, total scrimmage yards last year, 1,557.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara, his best season in terms of most yards from scrimmage was 1,688 yards from scrimmage. That was his best season. And James Cook only trailed that by 100 and something yards.
And Alvin Kamara is special, right?
And Alvin Kamara got a 5-year, $75 million contract. So to play your point a little bit, to play devil's advocate against myself, I can see it. It's more me, my personal beliefs, but I can see it. Are the Bills willing to do that? Do the Buffalo Bills? Here's my thing. I believe that, and then we can move on. I believe that, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, they was here from the beginning, right? And I think being that they was here from the beginning, they already put their own thought process on how they feel about the running back position. But now, years later, you get a guy like Joe Brady who comes in and based on his system, values the running back position more, in my opinion, than probably a Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott would. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if Joe Brady is continuing to stay on the Bills as an offensive coordinator. He may not be on the team one way or the other, right? But assuming he is, I think that would be an interesting dynamic to discuss when that time arrives in terms of James Cook's contract.
Another thing too, I feel like, to kind of piggyback off what you said, is I think McDermott wants to run the ball. We heard the rumblings that him and Brian Daboll never got along because he wanted Josh to just air it out 50 times a game because it was successful and it worked. Mm-hmm. And McDermott wants to control the line of scrimmage and wants to be smash mouth, old school style. If we need to beat you with defense, sometimes we will. But let's remember too, there's a lot of rumblings that Brandon Beane's top level draft picks are not all panning out. Look at Kyer Elam. We talk about that all the time. James Cook was a second round pick. You don't think that there's going to be, okay, I can't just discard another second round pick, because we all know how Brandon Beane loves his draft picks and loves his draft capital. So I think it's something, it's a great debate, because I feel like people are always on either one side of the fence or the other, where it's like running backs are a dime a dozen, or running backs that can perform and produce. You need to hold on to those guys until it's time to say, okay, we need to reset this. So, I mean, Sean McDermott walked into having Sean McCoy already on the roster. So he already had a guy, and everybody I think knows, and you know, Akeem, how much I love LaShawn McCoy. He was a scrimmage machine. Like if a play broke down, Tyrod Taylor or whoever would throw it up, dump it off to Shady, and it would get yards. So with this offense, the way it's constructed, if it's successful, like I said, I don't think that Joe Brady is going to be here long term. If this offense is successful with as much turnover at the skill position that there's been, if Josh Allen in this offense churns out a 13-4, 12-5 record and makes a deep playoff run, they're going to look first at Joe Brady taking over with all these moving parts, and you have no wide receiver room. And James Cook's going to be a huge part of that. If he's a catalyst for what this team does offensively, I don't see how you could not pay him. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
I like it.
It's a friendly debate, and I love the topic. It's something I don't see a lot of people talking about. I know he's only played 2 years, and he's got another 2 years under contract, but it's something. When the CMC contract happened, it hit me. Like, we have a guy that is fairly close to doing for this team what he's doing, and I feel like this year he's going to do a lot more. And I think that it's something to talk about if he should be rewarded or not. So, all right, if you guys are watching this, please, wherever you're watching it, smash the like button, especially on YouTube. Let's get those likes up. YouTube loves the videos that get liked. It pushes them on everybody's news feed, so we can punch the YouTube algorithm in the face and get it to the top of everybody's news feed, so we can grow the engagement, grow the following, get a ton of the rewatches, so that our channel can grow and you guys can have more and more content to engage with. If you're watching on Facebook, please share. If you're watching on X, please repost this. All right, ARich, this was your topic. We're going to talk about the difference between the 2023 Bills wide receiver room and the 2024 Bills wide receiver room. The obvious differences are these two guys right here on the graphic. There's no Stephon Diggs, obviously traded to the Texans. Gabe Davis signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So also missing off here is Trent Sherfield, who was on the team for 1 year. Deontay Hardy, who I think most people can agree the most memorable play he made was that kickoff return against the Dolphins. And then Andy Isabella. So that was last year, right? Obviously, we all know Diggs. Everybody's talked about Diggs until we're blue in the face. This year's roster is the who's of wide receivers. Keon Coleman, Chase Claypool, Curtis Samuel, KJ Hamler, Khalil Shakir, Andy Isabella, MVS, Justin Shorter, and Mac Hollins. So, and that was in no particular order. So before everybody says that was in some sort of order, it wasn't. Okay, where do we even start with this debate? Because I'm sick and tired of hearing that the Bills wide receiver room is bottom 10 in the NFL. Do you agree with that?
Oh man, it's. I would honestly, I would have to look at all the rosters to come up with a accurate decision. But right now, no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that because I believe that the Buffalo Bills receiving core, it does not have the prototypical number one alpha male receiver, but I do believe that the Buffalo Bills have uh, a deep group of receivers that can come in and make plays. So I don't think they're bottom 10.
I said this last week, and if you look at how the Kansas City Chiefs are constructed as far as their offense, now I understand that they have one of the smartest head coaches offensively in the history of the game in Andy Reid, Hall of Fame coach. But if you look at the last 2 years since Tyreek Hill's departure, they've relied heavily on Travis Kelce and a bunch of guys that I would say would be twos on most rosters. Would you agree with that? They're number
Agreed.
twos on most rosters.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is now on the Bills in MVS. So I don't know if Brandon Beane is looking at that wholeheartedly and thinking that we can do wide receiver by committee. We can think maybe one of these guys is going to step up into that wide receiver one role just by play on the field as the season progresses. Because I'm never going to compare Dalton Kincaid, even though I think the world of him, to Travis Kelce. That's just unfair to Dalton Kincaid. I mean, it's too early into his career. There's huge expectations for him. But I don't really want to talk about the tight end position because this is about wide receivers. So do you think that Brandon Beane's got some of that going on? Because we know year after year, seemingly, the Bills try to mimic somewhat what the Kansas City Chiefs do because it is that bully that is kind of standing in their way and that hill that we have to try to climb and get over. Do you think that's something that he does, or do you think this is something different this year?
I think that is something that he does, right? I do believe that. Now, again, like you said, we're not going to talk about tight ends in terms of comparing Travis Kelce with Dulce Kincaid, but I do believe when you compare the Buffalo Bills receiving core to last year's Kansas City Chiefs receiving core, I really believe in my heart of hearts that the Buffalo Bills receiving core is an overall top to bottom better core. And I believe they will prove so this year. I do think they got to have a guy. If we're not talking Kincaid, we have to have a guy within that group step up and take the pressure off the rest of the guys, right? I think that would be something that can be beneficial to the Buffalo Bills because that's what the Kansas City Chiefs had. They didn't have, the number ones and they struggled, but they had a guy that can take pressure off other guys. And right now, that's honestly what I'm looking for. I believe the group overall is a solid group from top to bottom, but I'm looking for that guy to take that pressure off Josh Allen and the rest of the core. And I think once we find that guy, or maybe it may be a couple guys, or it may be depending on which Sunday. One Sunday it might be Curtis Samuel. The next Sunday it might be Keon Coleman. The next Sunday it may be Chase Claypool. But we have to have some type of formula that we find that meshes well and works with us.
I love that assessment. I agree with everything you said. I'm not stressed out as much as a lot of people are about this wide receiving room. Just because you don't have the bona fide Stephon Diggs and you don't have Gabe Davis. You know what I saw today that really shocked me? It did, but it didn't. The most touchdowns by a wide receiver scored since 2020 is Gabe Davis with 33.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me because it was either Big Gabe Day, it was either Big Game Gabe, or it was like really not much else.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we should do, I think what will be a fun exercise is let's go through this list. All right. because we know the ones I feel like, and I think you feel like Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and MVS, and I even can throw in Mac Hollins. Those are probably all locks. And I don't want to give away too much of when we do our 53-man roster predictions. I don't want to give away too much of like how many they're going to keep and who can make it and who's a sleeper. I think, what are your expectations of Keon Coleman year one? What are your expectations? And we don't have to spend a ton of time on each guy, just initial, like we're talking about this on the 20th of July. What are your expectations? Second round pick, big body guy, contested catch guy, red zone threat. What are your initial thoughts?
I expect him to come in and make an immediate contribution to the Buffalo Bills in that offense. Reason being is because in terms of speed, I'm not really concerned with his speed, and it took a while for this part of it about Keon Coleman to process, because initially I wasn't a Keon Coleman fan because of the lack of speed. But now that I understand who we have and what offense we like to run, and I understand a little more the type of player Keon Coleman is, I think it makes for an immediate impact and an immediate contribution, because he excels at running those short and intermediate routes. Those are the routes where he gains the separation. Those are the routes where you can put him in 50-50 situations and he can come down with the football. Those are the routes where he can display his physical dominance and his bully ball nature. And when you combine his traits with Joe Brady's offense, I think it meshes well. And because of that, I believe he could come in and make an immediate contribution for the Bills. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's looked upon as one of the go-to receivers early.
I said it last week when we were talking about our top 10 players that need to step up. I think he's going to be a red zone target. And I like having the big body athletic. We've seen everybody's watched the college film at Florida State. Like he can go up and he can beat a defender for a ball, contested catches. He can go up and do that. And I like that aspect. I think he's going to go under the radar. A lot of people are saying that the Bills kind of reached taking him when they did. But I like you said, I feel like he's going to contribute. He's going to contribute often and early. And I think that's something that, we get to look forward to. And I think it's really going to pan out. And like I said, him and Dawson Knox in the red zone. People are sleeping on Dawson Knox, man. He's healthy and he's a physical tight end, but we're not talking about tight ends. So
right. I want to get your thoughts right quick, DM3, because I've heard something. There go my dog. I heard some news about a day ago about James Cook and what Joe Brady's not James Cook, excuse me, Curtis Samuel, and what Joe Brady said how he would like to utilize him in terms of at wide receiver and in the backfield. So once I heard that, I blushed hard, because I could imagine a James Cook and Curtis Samuel backfield, and with the receivers out there, it could pose for a lot of problems for opposing defenses. But what's your thoughts on Curtis Samuel and how he plays within this offense? Do you think he's probably getting a bigger role than any of us are talking about?
What's funny is I was just looking actually last night at his 2020 tape when he played with Joe Brady in Carolina, and he's and there's a graphic coming from me, but I think he is what the Bills wanted Isaiah McKenzie to be. Not Brian Daboll at the time, but the Bills front office and Sean McDermott want that guy. I hate calling them gadget guys, because Curtis Samuel is a really, really good route runner and wide receiver. He's got really good hands. I'm extremely excited to see what they roll out for him. I think it was a highly under the radar signing by the Bills. Nobody, it seemed, it was wanted to sniff talking about it other than Bills fans, obviously, in the national media. Some people I see out there that they overpaid for him. I think back when we were doing our free agency stuff, he was one of the guys that I put a graphic out that was my top target as far as offensively, because I knew where the pay was going to be. He was going to fit in line with that. And still, some people thought that the Bills weren't going to be able to afford him. But I think working again a familiar person that knows your skill set, like Joe Brady knows his skill set, will put him in the positions to be successful. And having a quarterback like Josh Allen, I'm really interested to see how they use all these underneath guys, because I think you have, and we're not going to talk about tight ends, but we have to, I think, at some point. You have Kincaid, who's an underneath guy. You have Shakir, who everybody thinks is going to be the slot receiver. You have Curtis Samuel, who can line up anywhere. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the Bills' short passing game is ultimately going to help Josh Allen to get into a rhythm to start games, start dumping things off over the middle, get some jet sweeps going, get some pitches and stuff like that. So I think he's going to fit in perfectly. I think that's why they targeted him. I guarantee that Joe Brady had a hand in the recruiting process of bringing him over during free agency, because he was a guy that he just couldn't wait to get his hands on. He still has the 4.3 speed. We saw it last year with Washington, and he's still one hell of a receiver. People don't understand that Curtis Samuel is an extremely athletic route running machine. And if you want yak, you're going to get a ton of it from Curtis Samuel this year. So I'm excited, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I'm excited as well.
What about you? How do you feel?
Just like you, I think, why our brains mesh so well. I wanted Curtis Samuel as well in the beginning of the season. I was banging the table and hoping we can get Curtis Samuel, because he can do a multitude of things within an offense he's already where he's had the most success with throughout the course of his career. So when you look at that, I thought it was a no-brainer. And then when you look at the football player himself, Curtis Samuel is just that. He's an excellent football player. He can do a multitude of things. He could be a receiver. And once he is a receiver and catches the ball with that compact build he has, he can go right into running back mode as soon as he gets the ball in his hands. You could put him on special teams. You can put Curtis Samuel literally anywhere on the offensive skill position. So with that, I believe that adds a dynamic within the Buffalo Bills offense that I don't think that Joe Brady had last year. And being that he has a whole offseason to implement this offense now, I'm excited to see what can unfold for Curtis Samuel, because honestly, we don't know about any of these guys, right? We talk about Keon Coleman.
Yeah, it's the fear of the unknown. Like I was going to say, like we don't know, like we know what we're getting from. I think we're getting from Shakir. Like if he takes a small mediocre step in the right direction, I think that's great. We know what we're going to get from James Cook. I think maybe some different added dimensions in the passing game, but like how is Curtis Samuel going to be used? How is Keon Coleman going to be used? Who's going to be the fifth receiver? Because I don't want it to be Mac Hollins. He can make the roster to play special teams. Like, is Chase Claypool going to make the MVS? Is he going to be just the guy that Josh is going to tell him to go run 60 yards downfield and hopefully he catches the ball? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think for Bills fans, it's the fear of the unknown of this group, because they're all different guys. They're all different players, and they all do different things. Where we knew what we got from Stephon Diggs, we knew what we expected most weeks from Gabe Davis. We knew all that, and there's not that receiver that Bean went out and got, like the Emmanuel Sanders, who was the veteran that would come in and just be, he was reliable, wouldn't drop the ball, he'd get open, he'd make plays when you needed. He was Cole Beasley, third down specialist, stuff like that. So to me, I think a lot of fans are scared of the unknown. We're all pounding the table saying it's Joe Brady's offense. It's going to be great. It's going to be dynamic. It's going to be stuff we haven't seen before. We have to remember this offense is going to have some growing pains. It's going to take time to get these guys in routines. The offensive line, there's a new center. There's a new left guard. Like there's all kinds of stuff at play here. It's a new playbook too. So we have to make sure that we are managing our expectations properly before we get upset that the offense isn't just churning out first downs and touchdowns and the Bills aren't putting up 40 points right away. We have to manage expectations, because I do, and we'll get to this in a minute, not to jump off of the wide receiver topic, but I think we're going to see a different version of Josh Allen this year too. I really do. I feel like we're going to see, I don't want to see a more senior version of him, but I feel like this offense is going to make him be more consistent in the pocket and make him be more consistent where completion percentage, taking checkdowns, taking what's given to them, quick release, 1-2, the ball's out. I think we're going to see a lot of that stuff, timing routes, stuff like that. So I don't know. How do you are you concerned that there's going to be growing pains to where it might kind of put us behind the 8 ball coming out? Arizona game, it's the first game of the season. I'm not widely advantageous thinking that the Bills are going to go lose that game. It's at home. The stadium's going to be crazy. But week 2 is against Miami. So how do you feel about everything I just laid out with expectations and coming out slow and stuff like that? Like, what's your thoughts? And I went on a crazy rabbit hole right there. So if you want to unpack any of that, feel free to pick on any of that.
So now I think that situation involves our defense. How stout is our defense? Is our defense going to allow our offense to go through those growing pains? And what I mean is, can the Buffalo Bills struggle offensively, but the defense is good enough to keep them in the game late enough where the Buffalo Bills offense can come and make plays at the end? Can the Buffalo Bills win games while on growing pains and while going through growing pains offensively? And I think that is all up to the defense for the Buffalo Bills. And I expect the defense to be able to hold that fort because of who our head coach is. So it's all predicated on the defense, in my opinion.
I saw something here. You want to take this one? If it came down to MVS or Claypool, who would you keep?
If it came down to MVS or Claypool, I would keep MVS because we have we have a Claypool. We have guys similar to Claypool on the roster in the wide receiver room already. I think MVS adds that speed element, that speed dynamic that we don't necessarily have. We have it in Curtis Samuel in terms of speed, but his speed is more horizontal in this offense, more yak, more catch the ball short and take it long. And I think MVS provides that stretch ability that we wouldn't have if he wasn't on the football team.
Everybody wants to knock MVS for his drops last year, and I will say yes, he had quite a few drops the season before and last year. But I will always bring this, as painful of a subject as it is to bring back. Watch the Bills-Chiefs postseason game from this past season. He made plays when it counted in an important game. He made plays that the Bills wide receivers didn't make. So that, I mean, there's really nothing else I can say. I mean, they brought him in obviously as for competition, and I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that's going to make the roster. He's going to have a couple plays throughout the season that are going to be important, and that's going to be his role. I don't feel like he's going to be an every week 5 to 10 target guy. I feel like he's going to be a guy who's going to be in there on third and 12, or he's going to be playing those downs where they need to absolutely or those drives where they just absolutely need to pass. So let's talk about Khalil Shakir for a minute. We kind of touched on him earlier. What are your modest expectations for Khalil Shakir? Because I've seen a lot of people saying, and I'm a Khalil Shakir stan. I've loved him since the draft. I thought the rookie season he wasn't utilized enough, and then when he got his time to shine last year under Joe Brady, down the stretch he was arguably the Bills' best target, not named Dalton Kincaid. So, what's your thoughts heading into year 3 for Khalil Shakir? Oh, you're muted. Maybe.
The expectations for
The
expectations for Khalil Shakir, in my opinion, is for him to pick up exactly from where he left off. I have high expectations for Khalil Shakir. I think he found his why within the Buffalo Bills last year. Before Joe Brady took over, I don't think he knew exactly how he fits into the Buffalo Bills offense. And I believe now, not only he knows he fits, he knows exactly how he fits within the offense. He knows exactly his strengths and what he does best. So now that he knows that, before the whole off season has started, you have a whole off season now to to hone in on your craft. You have a whole off season to further dive into playbook, and I think Khalil Shakir should be one of the guys to benefit from Joe Brady's full off season as the offensive coordinator. So overall, my overall expectations for Khalil Shakir is to be one of the top 3 receivers leading in terms of being on the field and snap percentage, and for him to continue to make plays within the Buffalo Bills offense. I believe he's going to have an uptick this year.
I agree. I couldn't have said any more than what you just did. It's perfect. I think we touched on it a little bit last week. I think all I need him to do is when your number's called, make a play. I think that's all. That is a reasonable expectation for Khalil Shakir. We got to remember he's a 5th-round draft pick. I know he was highly sought after, and people couldn't believe he fell to the 5th round, and he fell in the Bills' lap and all this stuff. But as long as he just makes a play when his number's called, that's all I ask for. Make plays when Josh targets you. Make the play. That's it. Get the yards after catch like you've been doing. Just be consistent throughout, and let's keep it moving. Because I do think that there's a path for him to be the Bills' slot receiver, sort of like what Cole Beasley was, where if it's 3rd and 7, you can tell the Bills are going to target either him or Kincaid, and I think it's going to be successful, which is kind of scary because the Bills have 2 guys that can play the slot and can play the slot at a really well level. So, all right, let's talk about some of these other guys. I think it's fair that we talk about the rest of these guys. What's a path for Chase Claypool to make this roster? I don't want to give away our 53s because I'm sure we're going to talk about the guys that I'll bring up here in a minute. We're going to talk about all those guys. But is there a path for Chase Claypool?
Absolutely. The path is for him to come in and be the guy that we all thought he was going to be as a 2nd-round pick going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, to come in and not be a mental case, not be a headache, not be a distraction to the team, come in mentally focused and understand where you're at in this point of your career. And in this point of your career, you're on, possibly your last team. You're playing with Josh Allen. You're playing with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you can't succeed here, where are you going to succeed? And I think that as long as Chase Claypool, brings his lunch pail every day, he has the measurables, he has the athletic traits to be a guy that can do some damage on the offense. He can do some things in the red zone with that body and with that frame. He can be able to box out and play some bully ball at receiver. So if he can bring a consistent lunch pail brand style of football, I think he's going to make this 53-man roster. If he's on how he displayed his actions in Pittsburgh and acting and not being a part of the team and not putting his best foot forward, then somebody else is going to make this roster. KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, Justin Shorter.
Yeah, they haven't talked about anybody, but out of the guys that you just mentioned, the KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, Justin Shorter, they haven't mentioned anybody about Chase Claypool. I haven't seen anything saying that, KJ Hamler is going to be the Bills' kick and punt returner. He's been dynamic this offseason. I haven't heard anything about Andy Isabella, and I don't even know if Justin Shorter exists or not. I haven't heard a peep about him. It's going to be tough because they went from the wide receiver room was the cupboards were bare, and I'm not saying it's loaded by any means. I'm just saying that towards the 5, 6, 7 guys fighting for wide receiver 5, 6, 7, you have a bunch of guys that we have no idea who could have a leg up on the other one. KJ Hamler plays special teams. He returns kicks and punts. I think Mac Hollins, they gave him a contract early. I think they wanted to sign him early. They locked him up early. Big body, plays special teams. So we know how McDermott loves his guys that can get on the field and, make a commitment to doing special teams. I don't know if Chase Claypool will play special teams. I don't know if he can or can't, if he will or won't. Andy Isabella, again, maybe kicks and punt returns. But he was here last year, and he didn't make the roster last year. Maybe there's a path for him. And then Justin Shorter, I don't know what. I know they stashed him on IR, so they obviously like him. They could have just outright released him last year, but they obviously like him. Highly recruited out of high school. It was crazy that he fell in the draft. So I don't even know what we have in Justin Shorter. And I feel like we should just kind of bring his name up so we can say it every podcast just because. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to give away how many I'm thinking the Bills are going to keep. Because there's a lot of other stuff that can happen between now and when we do our roster construction here in a few weeks. Are they going to keep 11 linemen? Are they going to keep 7 or 8 DBs? How many linebackers are going to make it? Stuff like that. But I think your locks are obviously Coleman, Shakir, Samuel, and MVS. I guess you could throw Hollins in there too. After that, let the best man win, and hopefully, I mean, I hate that I'm going to say this, but I'm kind of rooting for Chase Claypool. I think there's still something there. I really think there's some untapped potential there because we saw how good he was in college. I mean, I think we both liked him coming out of Notre Dame in college, did we not? We both kind of thought he'd be really good.
Yep.
So, yep. All right. Anything else you want to touch on the wide receivers?
I'm rooting for Claypool as well, man. Just because I think that the overall wide receiver room would look better with him on the team, in my opinion. So I am rooting for him as well, and we'll see.
I want as many mismatches in the red zone as possible. I don't want to keep watching Josh Allen run the ball in from with inside the red zone. I don't mind it. It's a touchdown's a touchdown. You win games by scoring points, right? But I don't know. I'd rather see some of these guys fighting for spots, have success. So, all right, smash the like, everybody. Let's get these likes up. We're approaching 500 people watching on between all three of our platforms, X, Facebook, and YouTube. So we bring you the main course. If you're on social media, even the smallest bit throughout this past week, the NFL executives, scouts, and coaches released their lists of top 10 quarterbacks. Josh Allen was third behind Patrick Mahomes, of course. He's always going to be number one on everybody's list. And then Joe Burrow was second. Josh Allen was third. I have the graphic that can show you the top 5. I have the 10, but I don't have it on a graphic. So Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Stafford. You can argue with that list all you want. Josh Allen absolutely deserves, I believe, to be in the top 3, and I wouldn't put him at number 3. That's my take. So, Akeem, there's so many ways we can tackle this subject. There's so many ways we can talk about how this executive quoted unnamed source, unanimous source, said that Josh Allen was overrated. I think this thing escalated, kind of blew up. Everybody was on one side of the fence or the other. When you first heard that someone said Josh Allen was overrated, this is how we can start, and then you can kind of lead into how you want to tackle the rest of this. Is Josh Allen overrated?
Absolutely not.
All right, show's over. We're good.
Absolutely freaking not. Blasphemy.
Continue. No, continue. Is there more?
No, I mean it's. I'm not sure how you can look at a guy that is just a physical specimen and with the ball in his hands, either throwing or running, the things that he is capable of doing, nobody, not even Patrick Mahomes himself, is capable of doing. Now, capability and being better are two different things. I don't want if any Patrick Mahomes people out here to kill me, but Josh Allen, he has that type of style in him and that will in him, and that's a never quit, never die attitude, and that's the type of player he is, and he displays that on the football field. And can he be reckless at times? Absolutely, he can be reckless at times, but nobody can do the things Josh Allen can do with his legs and with the football, and we'll elaborate as we continue. But absolutely not. Josh Allen is not overrated.
So the quote from this unanimous source said that, like you said, Josh Allen can be reckless. Josh Allen struggles and loses at the line of scrimmage. Would you agree with that portion of what he said? He struggles and he loses at the line of scrimmage. How does he lose at the line? I don't understand how he loses at the line of scrimmage. How do we even break that down? I wish there was more of an explanation of how he loses at the line of scrimmage. I don't get that.
I believe that was said is compounded a little bit because he tends to lock on to receivers, right? So he locks on the receiver at the line of scrimmage, and I'm assuming that's how he would lose. You have your receiver, it's premeditated, you lock on, you throw it, it's an interception. And it seems to me like that guy, he just watched maybe the Jets game last year. He probably watched the Jets game, or he probably watched, but he's not taking into account the full body of work or full body of the football player Josh Allen is. And when you look at the full body of work as a football player and what Josh Allen is, he does way more great than he does bad. And in my opinion, it's just, just one man's opinion, and it's a horrible one. And another thing I don't like, going off the rails a little bit, is why is Joe Burrow constantly number 2 on this quarterback list? I'm seeing him a lot, and it kind of bothers me because durability is a part of this scale as well, in my opinion, in terms of how you evaluate or how you rank players. And if Joe Burrow has had a season-ending injury a couple of years prior, and then last year, that means to me that he has trouble with durability at times. And Josh Allen doesn't have those troubles. And because of that alone, if the stats mimic or close or mirror each other, that would give Josh the edge because he is out there game in and game out. He is the more durable player. So how is Joe Burrow constantly in this number 2 best quarterback in the NFL discussion?
So I've seen a lot of rankings where Josh has been 2, but you're right. The guy that seems to sneak in there at number 2 ahead of Josh is Joe Burrow. And like you said, your best ability is your availability. We need you to suit up on Sunday and go to war. The top 4 that I've seen a lot are obviously Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, and Lamar. Since 2018, when these guys both came into the league, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, which are probably the darlings of that 2018 draft class. I mean, Baker's still out there, but Josh Allen has 89 more touchdown passes, not even rushing, passes than interceptions. Lamar has 80 more touchdown passes than interceptions. So for a guy who's an interception machine, he's still getting more touchdowns at a clip high. He's getting touchdowns at a clip higher than Lamar, who's won 2 MVPs. I'll take it one step further. Since the year 2000, and I looked this up and I fact checked it, and it's accurate 100%. And you guys can all look it up. Since 2020, the highest rated quarterback in the 4th quarter is Josh Allen. In all of the NFL. So what that tells me is that Josh Allen, when it's time to quit dicking around, to quit trying to play bully ball, or trying to make stuff where it's not, to make something out of nothing, forcing passes, fumbling the football, giving the ball away, Josh Allen's not doing that. And we all see it in the postseason. We all see what Josh Allen is able to do. Match his stats against Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. And I'm so sick and tired of all these pundits, these national media guys saying, well, Patrick Mahomes has 3 rings. The last time I checked, Patrick Mahomes doesn't play defense. He doesn't return kicks. He doesn't block punts. He doesn't hold for field goals. He doesn't do any of that stuff. Does he lead his team to victory maybe in the fourth quarter of a game when they're down, by a few points, 13 seconds? Yes, he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so sick of the Josh doesn't have any rings, so he should never be in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes. And I'll even take that conversation because you mentioned you don't want to put him ahead of Josh Allen. Well, you know what? I'm going to, because this was put out there on a national media television show, and I screenshotted it and I got it. So the last 4 seasons, this is back to 2020, when Josh started that ascent to where he's at. He's got two less wins in the regular season. Look at the yards. He's got 300 less total yards. Because you know what? I don't care if people say that Patrick Mahomes gets all his yards and touchdowns in the air. 6 points is 6 points, and he's accounting for it. Look at the total touchdowns. Yes, there's more turnovers, but there's also more touchdowns. And look at what he's had to play with. All the Hall of Fame head coach, the Hall of Fame tight end, Tyreek Hill. Josh Allen's had Stephon Diggs. I'm gonna take it another step further. Okay,
do it.
Head to head, last 5 meetings, including the postseason, since 2021. Josh Allen has a 16 touchdown to 1 interception ratio. Patrick Mahomes has an 11 touchdown to 5 interception ratio. So Josh Allen, what this tells me is he's doing everything he can to will his team to a victory. 13 seconds is not Josh Allen's fault. It's not. I don't care. The AFC Championship game, I don't believe that was Josh Allen's fault. The game last year in the divisional round, okay, Josh missed on a pass because he was hit. Last time I checked, he didn't give up 27 points, right? Of which nobody else scored 24 points on the Kansas City Chiefs nearly all season. So I don't know. I'm getting heated because
and that is sorry to cut you off, and that is the theme of the Kansas City Chiefs that's being ignored, right? Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. He's a generational talent. He is what he is. At the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs did not win the Super Bowl last year because of Patrick Mahomes. The Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year because of that Kansas City Chiefs defense. Their defense allowed them to stay in games. Their defense allowed that team, the offense, to go through their growing pains because the defense was keeping them in games. And then Patrick Mahomes, because he was in the game, because his defense kept him in the game, he can play hero football and come back at the end. So I think that, when we're talking about wins in the NFL, like you just alluded to, is not Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen.
Right.
It's the surrounding factors as well, and I think that is what Josh Allen and great graphic there as well, right? And that's where Josh Allen has been lacking, right? In terms of, can the other guys hold the fort? Can when I'm playing my best, can I have help to carry me along the way? And I don't think that Josh Allen had as much help carrying him along the way as Patrick Mahomes did.
Yeah, I don't think that there's been a quarterback asked to do more with less. And I'm not talking, I understand he had Stephon Diggs for 4 seasons. And you could put the season that Allen and Diggs had, even with the tail end of last year, half the last season, they just weren't in sync and it didn't work. You could put those 4 seasons up against pretty much a lot of other quarterback wide receiver duos in a 4-year stretch, and it would be comparable. But what I'm talking about is all pros on defense that play the entire season, all pro linemen. You have an all-world kicker. You have one of the smartest offensive-minded head coaches in the league. That stuff doesn't get talked about with Patrick Mahomes. It's always Patrick Mahomes beat Joe Burrow. Patrick Mahomes beat Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes beat Lamar Jackson. Patrick Mahomes beat Brock Purdy. No, it's a team game. There's 53 men on a roster that participate every week, right? I'm sick of the narrative that Josh Allen can't win big games. Josh Allen has too many turnovers. Josh Allen can't beat Mahomes head to head. The hell he can't. I'm sorry that the 3 losses in the postseason were all Patrick Mahomes. It wasn't the fact that the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs' defense was just way better than the Bills' offense. It just was. The 13 seconds game, if anyone wants to blame Josh Allen for that, you're nuts. I'm sorry. The Bills' coaching staff lost that game. And then this past offseason, or this past postseason when the Bills lost, that game could have won either way. I think we can all agree upon that. And the Chiefs had the number 1 or number 2 overall defense, and Allen did things that a lot of other quarterbacks couldn't do. Look at what Lamar Jackson did, the MVP, did the following week. They put up 7 points. So I don't want to hear that Josh can't beat Patrick Mahomes, Josh can't beat Joe Burrow. It's a team game, and I feel like Brandon Beane is going all in on Josh Allen this season. That's why the Diggs trade happened. That's why the Bills haven't spent money on a receiver. They haven't made a big trade. Because I'm telling you right now, all these Bills fans are thinking that there's some big trades happening with this $11.6 million that the Bills have. They're going to go get Deebo Samuel. They're going to go get this guy or that guy. They're not going to. I'm telling you right now. This is the wide receiver core that they're going to have. These are the offensive skill position players they're going to have. And they're relying heavily on Josh Allen doing what he did for Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and John Brown and those guys, and elevating their game to where this offense is just in sync constantly because of Josh Allen heading into year 7, and that's what they're banking on, because that's what the Chiefs did with Mahomes. They just said he's going to elevate everybody else, so that's what's going to happen this year. And I feel like that's where they're heading, and that's why I started the conversation a while back about, do you think Brandon Beane likes to mimic what the Chiefs do at times? And I feel like that's what's happening.
And I hope so. I'm not sure how good the Buffalo Bills defense is yet. I don't think right now, July 20th, right? I don't think they're better than last year's Chiefs defense, but I do think that they are the stronghold for the season. Josh Allen, with this core, with this group in this transition, can he limit the mistakes? Can he limit the turnovers? If he doesn't limit the turnovers, can the defense bail him out when he turns over the football? So these are certain things that I'm interested to see this year. Kansas City Chiefs, when they struggled on offense, their defense came through. Their defense came through a multitude of weeks. They gave that offense time late in the season to finally find their groove, and everything clicked late in the season, and it was a full-blown train because of what the defense was able to do early in the season. Can the Buffalo Bills mirror that, like you alluded to? We'll see.
So this comment from Ed Ryan here, it hinges on the linebacker and cornerback play. I feel like those 2 position groups on defense are the Bills' strongest position groups. What gives me confidence and that kind of bleeds into what I was going to say. What gives me confidence about this Bills defense is how they were able to replace Terrell Edmunds. A lot of us didn't see it. Most of us didn't see it in Terrell Bernard. They replaced Tre'Davious White last year. Brandon Beane did a hell of a job getting Rasul Douglas, right? Now, he wasn't drafted and developed within the Bills system, but that was Brandon Beane scouting a guy on another team and bringing him in as a viable CB1 replacement. Christian Benford was drafted and developed to be a CB. He's now the CB1B, we'll say, or CB2. So I have that confidence in what they're doing with the safety room. I feel like this is an area where I believe in Sean McDermott and his ability to teach these guys and groom these players. The defensive line, that's another area where I feel like they're gonna have to just keep churning Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and we're gonna have to hope that we get some positive play from Groot and from AJ Epinesa. But what they've done so far, replacing guys that have left, because we lost Terrell Edmunds, they replaced him. We lost Tre'Davious White, they replaced him. We just lost Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Let's see what happens with these guys that they brought in. So I'm confident that what they're seeing with the offensive side of the ball and with the wide receiver room, skill position players, the Dalton Kincaids and James Cook, I feel like they're leaning on Josh Allen. And like Joe Brady said, this is Josh Allen's offense. Everything is going to be based off of his strengths and weaknesses. So I think that it's in good hands. So to kind of wrap a bow on everything that we talked about, because it all comes together. And it starts with Josh Allen. It ends with Josh Allen. And it's all going to be predicated on, can he control the football? Can he, limit the mistakes? And like you said, can we, have that defense that Kansas City had that would I wouldn't say bail them out, but would hold the fort when they only scored 17 points, or going into the fourth quarter when the game was tied, get a turnover and make some stops. So, anything else you want to add about Josh being overrated, James Cook, the wide receiver room? Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
It's exciting right now. It's exciting right now, leading up to camp. We're about to get back into the swing of things. We're going to see the strengths and weaknesses of the football team. You said we have a little over 11 million to play with. Are we going to indulge in the wide receiver room? Maybe not, but is it possible that the Buffalo Bills can make a move? I think anything is possible there. I think Brandon Beane, he's always looking to improve the team. So I'm excited to see the Buffalo Bills kick off camp here shortly and see where we progressed or where we may need to find opportunities.
I think he's going to hold on to the money until we hit right around preseason. I think you could see another depth corner come in. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. I think something within the $1 to $3 to $4 million range just for depth. Somebody like a Patrick Peterson, who's still out there. And I'm always looking to add on edge, because I think you need an insurance policy. If Von Miller is the Von Miller of last year and he hasn't progressed back to the Von Miller of a couple years ago, I think you need insurance there. Guys like Yannick Ngakoue, who's still out there, free agent, things like that. I think you keep $5 or $6 million roughly to go into the season if something has to happen during the trade deadline, or if there's injuries, then you need to sign guys, during the season or right before the season starts, because somebody will always fall during preseason or when there's roster construction. Guys are always released, and I think that that's when the Bills found Jordan Phillips, things like that. So it could happen. I don't expect anything crazy, because I think that they're believing that Josh Allen is going to take that next leap for this team. He's going to become that leader, and he's going to help these guys become better versions of themselves. Hey, come to Buffalo, be a better version of yourself, right? So we'll see. It's going to be interesting, though. And we'll be right along here for the entire journey, every week, every Saturday. We'll be here live, ARich and myself, the founders of Built in Buffalo. ARich, you want to take us out, man?
Definitely, man. ARich, Akeem Richens, DM3, Dave Myers. This has been the Founders Pod. We appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or X. We appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back. I wanted to say same time next week, but it won't be the same time next week. It should be back to our regular time, 9:15. I'm thinking DM3. So please be on the lookout for all the great content Bills and Buffalo is providing throughout the week, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Go Bills.
Go Bills.